Oh, hello. Do you know, I was just thinking about a programme that I watched when I was young, and it used to be on the television when I got home, and I'm sure all the teachers remember this programme. It was called Jackanory, and it was basically just a person reading a book to children, because books are such magical things. Do you know, that got me thinking. One of the stories that I remember on Jackanory was called The Golden Bird. How did that go? Let me think.
In olden times, there was a king who had behind his palace a beautiful pleasure garden in which there was a tree that bore golden apples. When the apples were getting ripe, they were counted, but on the very next morning, one was missing. This was told to the king, and he ordered that a watch should be kept on every night beneath the tree.
The king had 3 sons, the eldest of whom he sent for. He ordered him to wait in the garden and watch. Then night came into the garden. When it was midnight, he could not keep himself from sleeping, and next morning an apple was gone. The following night, the second son was ordered to keep watch, but he fared no better. As soon as 12 o'clock struck, he fell asleep, and in the morning, an apple was gone.
Now it came to the turn of the third son to watch. He was quite ready, but the king had not much trust in him, and thought that he would be of less use than his brothers. But what did he have to lose? He would let him have a go. The third and youngest brother lay down beneath the tree, but kept awake, and did not sleep. When it struck 12, something rustled through the air, and in the moonlight he saw a bird appear, whose feathers were shining with gold. The bird landed on the tree, and had just picked a golden apple, when the third brother shot an arrow at him. The bird flew off, but the arrow had stuck in his wing, and one of his golden feathers fell down.
The youth picked it up, and the next morning took it to the king and told him what he had seen in the night. The king called his council together, and everyone declared that a feather like this was worth more than the whole kingdom. "If the feather is so precious," declared the king, "one alone will not do for me. I must and will have the whole bird."
The eldest son set out. The king, still trusting his cleverness, thought that he would easily find the golden bird. When he had been gone for some time, travelling some distance, he saw a fox sitting at the edge of a wood. Now this son didn't care about living things and nature, so he drew his rifle and took aim at him. The fox cried, "Do not shoot me, and in return I will give you some important help on your quest. You are on the way to the golden bird. This evening you will come to a village in which stand 2 inns opposite to one another. One of them is lit up brightly, and all goes on merrily within, but do not enter it. Go rather into the other inn, even though it seems a bad one."
How can such a silly beast give wise advice, thought the king's son, and he pulled the trigger. But he missed the fox, who stretched out his tail and ran quickly into the wood. So the eldest brother continued on his way, and by evening came to the village where the 2 inns were. In one they were singing and dancing, just as the fox had said. The other had a poor, miserable look. "I should be fooled indeed," he thought, "if I were to go into the shabby inn and pass by the good one." So he went into the cheerful one. He had such a good time that he forgot the bird and his father and all good advice.
Month after month passed, and when the eldest son did not come home, the second son set out, wishing to find the golden bird. Again, just as the first son had encountered the fox near the wood, so did the king's second son. The fox gave the same advice a second time. "You are on the way to the golden bird." This evening you will come to a village in which stand two inns opposite to one another. One of them is lit up brightly, and all goes on merrily within, but do not enter it. Go rather into the other inn, even though it seems a bad one.
The second son just thought the fox was very odd and took no notice of what he had said. When he came to the two inns, the first brother was standing at the window of the one from which came the music. The eldest brother called to him. As the second brother has forgotten the fox's advice, he could not resist and went inside, and lived with the eldest brother, having a good time and forgetting all about the golden bird and the king and his golden apple tree.
Again, some months went by, and so just like before, the king's youngest son wanted to set off and try his luck. But his father would not allow it. It's not no use, he said. He would be less likely to find the golden bird than his brothers, and if a mishap were to befall him, he knows not how to help himself. The king had little faith in his youngest son, even though it was he who had stayed awake to see the bird. But at last, the king admitted that he had no choice but to let him go. After another long journey, the fox was again sitting outside the wood. Again the son drew his bow even, an arrow. The fox begged for his life, and in return, he offered good advice one more time.
The youngest son was good-natured and said, "Be easy, little fox, I will do you no harm. You shall not regret it," answered the fox, "and so that you may proceed more quickly, get on my back and I will take you to the two inns." The third son climbed on the fox's back, and the fox began to run. Away he went over hills and valleys, his hair whistling in the wind. When they came to the village, the youngest son got off. He followed the good advice and without looking round, turned into the inn with no music, where he spent the night quietly.
The next morning, as soon as he got into the open country, there sat the fox again and said, "I will tell you more about what you have to do. Go straight forth from here and you will come to a castle, in front of which a whole regiment of soldiers is lying. But do not trouble yourself about them, for they will be asleep and snoring. Tiptoe through the middle of them straight into the castle. Go through all the rooms until at last you come to a chamber where a golden bird is caged in a hanging wood cage. Close by, there stands an empty gold cage for show. Now you will be tempted to take the bird out of the common cage and put it into the expensive one, but you must resist, as this will go badly for you."
With these words, the fox again offered his services, and the king's son sat himself upon the fox, and away he went over stock and stone with his hair whistling in the wind. When they came to the castle, the fox disappeared. He found everything as the fox had said. The king's son tiptoed through the sleeping soldiers and went into the chamber where the golden bird was living in a wooden cage, whilst the golden one stood hard by, and the 3 golden apples lay about the room.
But, thought he, it would be absurd if I were to leave the beautiful bird in the common and ugly cage. So he opened the door, grabbed hold of the bird, and put it into the golden cage. But at the same moment, the bird uttered a shrill cry. The soldiers awoke, rushed in, and took him off to prison. The next morning, he was taken before this kingdom's court. The youngest son confessed everything and was sentenced to death.
The king, however, said that he would grant him his life on one condition, namely, if he brought him the famous golden horse which ran faster than the wind, and in that case he should receive over and above, as a reward, the golden bird. The king's son set off, but he sighed and was sorrowful, for how was he to find the golden horse? But all at once he saw this old friend, the fox, sitting on the road.
The son told the fox what had happened. "Look you," said the fox, "this has happened because you did not listen to me. However, be of good courage, and I will help you again. I will tell you how to get to the golden horse. You must go straight on, and you will come to a castle, where in the stable stands the horse. The grooms will be lying in front of the stable. They will be asleep and snoring, just like the soldiers, and you can quietly lead out the golden horse. But one thing you must not do. Put him the brown saddle of wood and leather, and not the golden one, which hangs close by, else it will go badly for you.
Then the fox offered his back for travel. The king's son again seated himself upon it. Away he went over stock and stone, with his hair whistling in the wind. Again, upon arrival, the fox was nowhere to be seen. Everything happened just as the fox had said. The king's son came to the stable where the grooms were all asleep. Inside, the golden horse was standing. But just as he was going to put the common brown leather saddle on, he thought, "It will be a shame for a beautiful beast if I do not give him the golden saddle, which after all I'm sure must belong to him by right."
But no sooner than the golden saddle touched the horse, he began to neigh loudly. The groom awoke, seized the young